we're going to be going through what I think is the best match at each WrestleMania for the past 20 years. So we're going to be going year by year, starting in 2003, WrestleMania 19, and working our way through year by year, all the way through to WrestleMania 39 in 2023, and determining what was the best match at that year's WrestleMania. And I know a lot of you asked me to do things before 2002, 2003-ish, but the truth is I wasn't watching wrestling before then, so they'd be kind of disingenuous opinions. I wanted to give you opinions of things that I was there to experience. So that's why I do it this way. I hope you understand. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications if you're a wrestling fan. I know you're gonna fall in love with this channel because we upload daily wrestling content. In fact, I double checked, we are on day 173 of daily content on this channel. Also, shout out to the Patreons over at patreon.com/SantiZap. We just crossed 100 patrons over there, so thank you for helping keep the mics on and the lights on. So if you want more wrestling content, more than what you're already getting here, check out patreon.com/SantiZap. It's the top link in the description or the pinned comment. There you're gonna get the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier than everybody else, alongside my Raw reviews, my SmackDown reviews, and the upcoming wrestling Q&A that we're gonna be doing. And the patrons had the chance to submit those questions. Again, patreon.com/SantiZap. Check it out. There might be a tier that works for you. All right, I'm done. Let's jump into it. So the year's 2003, and that puts us at WrestleMania 19. And WrestleMania 19 had some phenomenal matches, some standouts being The Rock versus Stone Cold, a match that would go down as the retirement of Stone Cold, at least until he came back at WrestleMania 38 to have a match with Kevin Owens. But still, it's a very important, monumental, and very good match. It also had the fantastic Chris Jericho versus Shawn Michaels. However, to me, the best match of this fantastic show has to be the main event in Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. First and foremost, this match should have been better, and it should have been better because Kurt Angle went into it injured and Brock Lesnar got injured towards the end of the match. So just think of what could have been had we had 100% versions of both of these two guys. On top of that, it was super cool to have a main event with two brand new WrestleMania main eventers. This was Kurt Angle's first Mania main event, as well as Brock Lesnar's first Mania main event after his catapult to rise to fame to the top of the WWE all through 2002. This match had it all. It had drama in terms of the story that it was telling. It was just a technically sound, beautiful match. It was a car wreck as well, and it had a pretty crazy, although botched ending that's gonna live in infamy in WWE history with the botched shooting star press from Brock Lesnar where he landed on the top of his head. It's some crazy stuff, and I don't want that to take away from how good the match is. It's just such a wonderful match and one of my favorite WrestleMania main events of all time. I highly recommend watching this, but again, it's one of those situations of, oh, what could have been had these guys not been injured throughout, because it was still fantastic. In 2004, that puts us at WrestleMania 20, and WrestleMania 20 was in Madison Square Garden. It had some key moments like the return of The Undertaker as the Dead Man. It also had a fantastic, wonderfully technical match between Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero, but to me, what stole the show is the match that's not going to get celebrated by the WWE anytime soon, that being the triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship in Triple H versus Shawn Michaels versus Chris Benoit. Now, Triple H and Shawn Michaels at this point were already having one of the most iconic blood feuds in WWE history, a feud that spanned the better part of like 2.5 years. So it was very predictable to have these two be in the main event, but what wasn't predictable is the workhorse Chris Benoit, who would go on to win the Royal Rumble from the #1 spot, having him be in the WrestleMania main event. And again, this match is never going to be celebrated, but I think the match itself should be celebrated because it is a technical masterpiece and arguably the greatest triple threat match that I've ever seen. I understand not wanting to celebrate the human Chris Benoit, but again, the worker inside of the ring, this match is absolutely iconic and it is so wonderfully good. It has so much drama. There's so many crazy false finishes, and these guys just had such a great chemistry. It's difficult to explain with words. It's a match that you have to witness yourself. I cannot recommend this match enough, and ultimately the right guy won in Chris Benoit. Again, it's just a shame that it's never going to get celebrated, understandably so. Next up is 2005, the year where WrestleMania turned 21 years old and is old enough to now have some drinks throughout the United States in the year where it went Hollywood. Now, this WrestleMania is a very important WrestleMania because it's the WrestleMania that gave us the rise of the two top stars in the WWE for the foreseeable future, in John Cena defeating John Bradshaw Layfield for the WWE Championship and Batista defeating Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. But none of those would even come close, even touch the stratosphere of how goddamn good Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle was. This is one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. In my opinion, and I know I'm in the minority here, I think that this is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. A lot of people have Shawn and Taker. I think that this is better. Personally, genuinely, I do. I think that this match is so good. And this is the match that made me realize how useless and pointless Dave Meltzer's opinions are, because I don't understand how you don't give this star a perfect rating of 5 out of 5. This match is wonderful. It is so fucking good. These, of course, like, you don't need to tell me, you don't need me to tell you that Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels are gonna put on a fire match, okay? Like that's an obvious statement, but still, it's something that you need to witness for yourself, because this match, like I said, in my opinion, it's the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. Now let's go to 2006, and that puts us at WrestleMania 22. Some notable moments here is John Cena defeating Triple H. We also had Rey Mysterio winning the World Heavyweight Championship from Kurt Angle and Randy Orton. We also had CM Punk be part of John Cena's entrance, and we had the CEO Vince McMahon getting absolutely thrashed by Shawn Michaels. But none of those even touch the hardcore match between Mick Foley and Edge, a match that would go down as probably one of the most violent matches on such a big stage, which is just so weird to see a match like this on like such a major stage like WrestleMania. This is also Mick Foley's biggest WrestleMania moment, because that was the story of this entire feud. The story of this feud was that Mick Foley had consistently never won at WrestleMania, and he needed his WrestleMania moment, and he was gonna put Edge through the ringer to get that WrestleMania moment. And this is, to me, Edge's stardom right here. This is where the star Edge was born. Yes, he had cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase, but even then the WWE didn't trust him as the champion, as the top guy, because he lost that belt basically immediately. But after this, man, like, Mick Foley truly made a superstar out of Edge. We had flaming tables, we had barbed wire Mr. Sockos, we had barbed wire bats. Mick Foley covered himself in barbed wire to protect against the spear. This is such an amazing car wreck. You gotta watch this one. 2007 is the year where WrestleMania starts to go into stadiums as opposed to arenas, this one being in Detroit's Ford Field. WrestleMania 23, which was headlined, in my opinion, by the wrong match. Even though John Cena versus Shawn Michaels was a very good match, I think that this should have been the headliner, and this is one of the most underrated WrestleMania world title matches and one of the most underrated Undertaker streak matches, because Undertaker versus Batista was an absolute, say it with me, a banger. This match is absolutely fantastic, and it was the start of a really good feud that weirdly does not get talked about when people talk about some of the best feuds of the Ruthless Aggression era. The combination of Batista's raw strength along with Undertaker's intimidating size and very diverse moveset just made for such a great, unique matchup. A matchup that I hadn't really seen before. This match gets an absolute thumbs up for me. It should have been the main event of that year's WrestleMania. Again, Shawn versus Cena. Yes, the star power is there, and it was a very good match, but this one was better. And now it's 2008, and you're gonna see a little bit of a trend moving forward with many of these matches. I know a lot of people have Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair, the retirement match, as being the best match of WrestleMania 24. I don't think so. I still think, again, one of the most underrated WrestleMania main events of all time. I got The Undertaker again. Undertaker is about to go on a streak here. Not his regular WrestleMania streak, just a streak of really good matches. But this match is phenomenal. Dude, who didn't actually believe that Edge was about to win when his two little goonies came out and he hit the spear on the Undertaker? I thought it was over. I was certain it was done. That was one of the craziest kickouts that I'd seen up until that moment in my young life as a wrestling fan. This is one of the most dramatic WrestleMania main events. It is a main event that will keep your heart pumping from beginning to end because it has so many fantastic false finishes. Edge and the Undertaker, I did not think that they were going to have as good a chemistry as they did, and they would go on to have just unmatchable chemistry. They were so good together. To me, this match basically melted my face. This is one that you have to watch. No ifs, ands, or buts. It is a WrestleMania main event that has been kind of like dug deep down into the ground and people forget about how good it is. This is a great match. 2009, this one's kind of obvious. Granted, WrestleMania 25 actually was kind of weak. We're actually about to go through a little bit of a streak of weaker WrestleManias because it wasn't even close, and you already knew it was going to be this one. It was going to be always The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels. If you're keeping track, we're at like 4 straight Undertaker matches in terms of it being the best WrestleMania match. In my opinion, he's the real Mr. WrestleMania. But hey, The Undertaker, the undead Mr. WrestleMania, taking on the Mr. WrestleMania and Shawn Michaels was an amazing match. It was like, I just thinking about it, it does have me smiling ear to ear. I still think that Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle is better. Again, I know I'm in the minority, so I acknowledge that, but it doesn't take away from the fact that I know that this match is truly, genuinely a special showcase of what professional wrestling is. A showcase from not just the grandiose entrances, and a showcase of not just the moves in the ring, but of in-ring psychology, body language. The commentary work in this is so good. This is one of the greatest wrestling matches of all time. Forget WrestleMania. I'm just talking of all time. This is a banger. And hey, you know what? Let's just not even skip a beat, because you already know 2010 is WrestleMania 26 and it's career versus streak. Again, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. I don't think that this one is as good as the original one at WrestleMania 25, but I think that the story that was told for this match was objectively better. The stakes were significantly higher. The career of Shawn Michaels was a precious thing that wrestling fans didn't want to lose. The streak of The Undertaker was something precious that wrestling fans didn't want to lose. So although this was a win-win for wrestling fans because we knew that this match was going to be fantastic, it was also a lose-lose for wrestling fans because we knew we were about to lose something special, whether it was Shawn's career or The Undertaker streak. Something was about to give. Man, we're so lucky to be wrestling fans. What a match. 2011 was home to what I personally think is the worst WrestleMania that I've ever seen in WrestleMania 27. It had a couple of gems in there, you know. For example, Randy Orton versus CM Punk was a very good match. But really, aside from that, most of this WrestleMania was a bit of a snooze fest, and it was just borderline dog water. The main event was trash. John Cena versus The Miz. The Rock as the host was neat, interesting, but it didn't really add much to the show. But this show will always go down as the one that gave us the no-holds-barred match between The Undertaker and Triple H. This is actually their second match. A lot of people think that this is their first match ever at WrestleMania, but we had another great one at WrestleMania 18, might I add. WrestleMania 17, not 18. I got my years mixed up there. But this is just such a grueling match to watch, and it told a great story of, even though Triple H lost, it was The Undertaker that wasn't able to walk out in his own power. Triple H lost, but he is the one that stood tall at the end of this match. Again, so many false finishes, some crazy spots like the spine buster through the table, and ultimately, again, just a wonderful story that was told from beginning to end. These two guys are icons of the industry, and they know each other so well, and you could tell that chemistry was in full effect during this match. Again, one of the very few highlights of all of WrestleMania 27. 2012 gave us a once-in-a-lifetime feud between John Cena and The Rock, but no, this is the poster for WrestleMania 28. This is not what I think is the best match of WrestleMania 28. As huge as John Cena versus The Rock was, it is a mediocre match built around a huge level of hype that was, of course, John Cena versus The Rock. But I don't think that this is the greatest WrestleMania match ever. I do love John Cena versus The Rock, but this ain't it. This WrestleMania also gave us CM Punk versus Chris Jericho. That was a really good match. But ultimately, oh my God, you already know who's in this. It's The Undertaker again. And even though I don't think this is the greatest WrestleMania match of all time, because I still think that that is Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels, this is my favorite WrestleMania match of all time in Triple H versus The Undertaker, Hell in a Cell, end of an era with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. If you want to see false finishes, oh my God, this is the match. It's got the greatest false finish of all time, folks, in the sweet chin music into the pedigree. 1, 2, kick out. I don't understand how you can kick out of the two most protected wrestling moves of all time. The Undertaker was truly a phenom. The Hell in a Cell truly added another level of dynamic that this feud really needed. It really added to the feeling that this was the end of not just this feud, but the era that these two represent, in that being the Attitude Era. Dude, this match was so hype that even the Hell in a Cell, the actual physical cage, got its own entrance theme as it was being lowered down. Again, I cannot tell you how emotional this match is. Again, it's not the greatest technical showcase of what wrestling is all about, but in terms of storytelling, this is kind of like the pinnacle of it. This is such a great match alongside a great, wonderful all-timer of a story. 2013 gave us Twice in a Lifetime, once again, headlined by The Rock and John Cena. Hey, look, Brock Lesnar's on the cover too, where he would go on to have a match with Triple H that year. But neither of those were the best matches because Look, I'm not trying to make this a hey, let me just suck off The Undertaker here for the next 20 minutes, but it was The Undertaker again. It's The Undertaker versus CM Punk. Not only, again, was this match really good, but the story that it told leading up to the match made the match feel even that much more special, because this is prime, the best heel CM Punk that we've ever seen, and he was doing some awful shit to The Undertaker. And The Undertaker was starting to slow down a bit, but at this time, this is prime CM Punk, where he could help carry somebody like The Undertaker to another tier. Again, Undertaker was still great. He was just missing that step that was there during his WrestleMania 27 and 28 bouts. But the combination between a slower Taker and a CM Punk still made for absolute fireworks and magic. This is this is in contention for one of the best streak matches. I don't think that it is, but it's in contention for it. 2024 gave us WrestleMania 30, a WrestleMania that was highlighted by the end of the Undertaker streak. And not only does his streak end at that year's WrestleMania, but his streak of my best WrestleMania matches also ends here as well, because he did not have a great match at this year's WrestleMania. Honestly, this WrestleMania is kind of overrated. A lot of people hyped up this WrestleMania as being one of the best of all time, but it's really just a one-story WrestleMania with the Daniel Bryan story, and it's memorable because of the Undertaker streak. But aside from that, this is actually a pretty weak WrestleMania. Still, it was Daniel Bryan that stole the show, but it's all about what Daniel Bryan match do we want to go with. And I think that the opener between Daniel Bryan and Triple H is objectively better than the triple threat match. Both were fantastic, but I think that this is the greatest WrestleMania opener of all time. These guys not only worked so well together in the ring, but also this, look, if I could make this story happen over and over again, I would have Triple H going in as the WWE champion and having Daniel Bryan defeat him, because the feud between these two was mouth-watering. It was one of the greatest feuds I've ever seen. It's one of the best feuds of the last decade. This is such a wonderful story that ultimately came to a head in that amazing WrestleMania opener. I think that this is better than the triple threat. Obviously, the triple threat gave us that great moment with Daniel Bryan becoming world heavyweight champion, but this, to me, Triple H was the real boss of the Daniel Bryan storyline, and it was awesome seeing him be conquered by Daniel Bryan. 2015 gave us what many of us thought was going to be the worst WrestleMania of all time, because on paper, WrestleMania 31 looked terrible. By the way, fun fact, this is when they stopped numbering WrestleManias. This is just now WrestleMania. They stopped numbering them, and they stopped calling WrestleMania the granddaddy of them all. I don't know why. They just changed the vernacular. They changed the language around WrestleMania. I just thought that was a fun fact to point out. This WrestleMania had so many great matches. The Intercontinental Championship ladder match was great. I really like Sting versus Triple H, as much of an overbooked mess as that was. Randy versus Seth Rollins was fantastic. And we also had Rusev coming out in a freaking tank. So this WrestleMania to me ended up being a special one. I do think that the best match technically isn't this, because there's two matches that go into this, because the Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns main event, everyone hated it at the beginning, but it ended up being such an amazing match. The hard-hitting nature of Brock Lesnar's suplex city bitch, as well as Roman Reigns' inability to stay down, really made for a really neat combination between all of them. But then, of course, we have to add Seth Rollins to this. Seth Rollins came in and cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase to make this a triple threat match, and ultimately made this one of the most memorable WrestleMania main events, one of the most memorable WrestleMania period. So kind of cheating, because this is technically two matches, because the one-on-one then turned into a triple threat, but whatever, just let me have this one, okay? This was great. 2016 gave us the awful WrestleMania 32. I think that this is a terrible show. This is when WrestleMania also started becoming just unnecessarily long. Also, nobody wanted to watch Triple H versus Roman Reigns be the main event. Instead, this match stole the show, in my opinion. The Divas Championship, which was still the Divas Championship, triple threat match between three of the four horsewomen of the WWE in Sasha Banks, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. And they would do away with the Divas Championship and introduce the WWE Women's Championship. So not only was this a great triple threat match, but it was, to me, a monumental moment in wrestling, because this is when the women stopped being divas and they were just wrestlers. But you can tell these three have been working together for so long, all the way from NXT into the main roster, because they were just immaculate together. Their chemistry was off the chain. Again, one of those triple threat matches that goes under the radar, that doesn't get talked about enough. I think that this is a wonderful match. Again, there wasn't too much competition at WrestleMania 32, because it wasn't a good show. 2017 gave us WrestleMania 33, probably the coolest stage and the coolest WrestleMania poster. Again, another weak WrestleMania, but at least this gave us the shockingly, unnecessarily good AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon. I don't know how, guys, but this really was a very good match. Again, AJ Styles could carry a cinder block to a great match. And frankly, a cinder block might be more athletic and agile than Shane McMahon. So I'm not surprised ultimately that AJ Styles was able to carry this. But hey, all props as well to Shane McMahon, because he was actually really, really good in this. But AJ Styles, of course, is the hero of this match. Again, it was just a weak WrestleMania, but this match kind of slaps. 2018 gave us WrestleMania. See, I've lost track because they stopped numbering them. What, WrestleMania 34, yes. Again, another weak WrestleMania. I did not think that this was a great show. But at the very least, it gave us this. And you might be shocked to see this if you haven't been watching wrestling up until this point, because Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle versus Triple H versus Stephanie McMahon in the mixed tag team match was awesome. Not only did this have so much hype because it had a returning Kurt Angle and a debuting Ronda Rousey, but it was just so cool to see Ronda Rousey mix it up with Triple H and actually toss him around like a rag doll. But not only did this match, of course, had the hype behind it because of the people that were involved, but this was actually like really good. Again, I might be blinded by the fact that one, this wasn't a great WrestleMania, and two, there was just a lot of hype and the crowd was really into this. Again, maybe it just didn't have a lot of competition this year, but I really enjoyed this. 2019 gave us the 7-hour and 35-minute WrestleMania 35. My God, this was so long that this is the reason why we now have a 2-night WrestleMania. There is no way that even me, somebody that loves wrestling as much as I do, could pay attention for 7.5 hours, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't even include the pre-show. This was egregiously long. And it's a shame that it was that long because it was main evented by the first ever women's main event, but it went on after midnight. I fell asleep waiting for the match, but hey, I digress. That was a great match, that triple threat women's main event, but I think that the best match is objectively Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. Again, such a wonderful story. One of the greatest stories ever told in the WWE. Sure, Kofi Kingston would not end up being the greatest WWE champion, but that moment, Kofi Mania as it would go on to be called, the lead up to this match was just perfection. It was perfect. Right down to the last minute detail, to quote my hero, my friend Homelander. But the match itself was also, not shockingly, fantastic. Daniel Bryan is, at this moment, the greatest professional wrestler alive. Kofi Kingston is one of the greatest unsung wrestlers of all time because he never got enough love as an in-ring performer. But the combination between him and Daniel Bryan just made magic in the ring. And again, just such an emotional story in the ring and outside of the ring. The celebration at the end is just so memorable as well. This to me is going to go down in history as, to me, one of my most cherished WWE storylines and matches of all time. I love Kofi Mania. 2020 was, of course, one of the darkest years in WWE history because this was the Pandemomania, the WrestleMania in front of no one. What was supposed to be the first two-night extravaganza ended up being one of the most eerie shows that I've ever seen. And it's a shame too, because this actually had a lot going for it. This show had the great triple threat match for the tag titles. It had Drew McIntyre finally winning the WWE Championship. It had the Falls Count Anywhere match between Edge and Randy Orton. And it had what was, to me, some of the most creative pieces of production that the WWE has ever put forth in the Firefly Funhouse match, as well as the Boneyard match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker. And I think both of those two were, pick them. Whatever was your preference was the best part of this year's WrestleMania. My preference, as many of you already know, does go to the Firefly Funhouse match between John Cena and The Fiend. I think that this is one of the most beautiful pieces of production that the WWE has ever done. It is such a wonderful love letter to the career of John Cena, and it is such a great demonstration of how great and creative Bray Wyatt was at this time. This is, to me, just such a wonderful piece of wrestling history. 2021 WrestleMania is back in business. Again, they kept the whole pirate theme for this. They just copied and pasted. But yeah, this had a phenomenal triple threat match for the WWE Universal Championship. This was close. This was almost a tie between this triple threat match and the Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair match. That was also fantastic. Ultimately, I ended up giving it to this because the stakes just felt too high. At this point, Roman Reigns is in God mode and is must-see television. You couple him with Edge, who had just won the Royal Rumble, and you put in Daniel Bryan in there, who again can have a fantastic match, a great 5 out of 5 wrestling match with an octopus, and all of a sudden you have magic. This is also the match that cemented Roman Reigns as not just the big dog, but the god of the WWE, as he would go on to not just win the match, but double stack pin these two after just such a hellacious, amazing, technical match with a lot of great storytelling. This is one of the greatest triple threat matches of all time, in my opinion. 2022 gave us the fairly lackluster WrestleMania 38, and I have to give this to Seth freaking Rollins versus an opponent of Mr. McMahon's choosing, which ultimately ended up being the surprising Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes, who had just left AEW after founding the damn company, came back to the WWE and made his re-debut as the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes at the biggest stage of them all at WrestleMania 38. And these two not only would go on to have a great match here at WrestleMania 38, but they would go on to have a killer feud for the rest of the year. One of the best feuds that I've seen in a very, very long time. Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins could fight forever, quite literally, and I would be okay with it. This is a great match. And that brings us to 2023, where WrestleMania goes Hollywood, and it's now WrestleMania 39. And there were a lot of matches in contention. I could have had Cody Rhodes versus Roman Roman Reigns here. I could have had the great tag team showcase match. I could have had the tag team main event from night one. I could have had Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, but ultimately I went with the easy choice, which was the triple threat Intercontinental Championship match between Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre. I've never seen a more hard-hitting match in my life. This was the true personification of big meaty men slapping meat. This was just everything that it was hyped up to be. Again, a hard-hitting match, a lot of great false finishes. All three of these guys look like absolute badasses. This is a must-watch match if you've not yet seen WrestleMania 39. All right, that's my list. You let me know what you think. Is there anything that you'd change? If not, just put an emoji in the comments. It helps with the YouTube algorithm. All right, I'm done. Get out of here.